I tell you, when I win this election, it's going to be a beautiful, a wonderful day for me. Man, can you just wear a mask? You know what, Biden? I have been the best president this world has ever seen. Just look at the stock market. You should be saying to me, thank you, Mr. President. I will say thank you, Mr. President, when you wear a mask. I don't need a mask. I beat COVID in just 3 days. I'm immune, which is just beautiful for me. I told China, and I'm telling you, I don't need a mask. Just wear a mask. I got loads of them here. Have them all. God, you're such a fool. You are the worst president ever. Whoa, 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 he's up there, guys. He's up there now. Now, this upcoming election is likely to be the most important election of a generation. The outcome is going to have profound implications on the financial markets, the stock market, the bond markets, the Forex market as well. We're now going to discuss the possible outcomes, how the markets are likely to react, and how we can profit from them. Come on. Okay, so I hope you liked that intro there. I know, before you all comment, my Biden does need a lot of work. So does my American accent. But this election is huge and the ramifications are massive, and it's going to affect all of us for the next year, 5 years, 10 years and beyond. And before we delve deeper into that, I want to take you back to the night of the last election in November 2016 and see the impact that it had on the markets. Okay, so here's a chart showing the Dow. The Dow is the top 30 companies traded out in the US, the highest capped companies. And you can see this is a daily chart. Daily chart basically means each candle represents daily price action in that 24-hour period. And you can see here, up to the 2016 election, the Dow, the stock market, was basically trading in quite a tight range. It was indecision. Markets didn't know which way to go because they didn't know the outcome of this important election. Now, just before the election, on the Monday before the election, the opinion polls were showing quite clearly that the Democrat candidate Hillary Clinton was likely to win, and likely to win pretty big as well. And with that, the markets gapped up higher. They gapped up higher, expecting the Democrat win. But on the night of the election, with this big candle here, it became clear that she wasn't going to win, and that Donald Trump was likely to be the victor and the next president of the USA. And indeed, we all know, of course, that happened.
Sorry to keep you waiting, complicated business.
And when that news set in, initially, the stock markets went into freefall. Look at this big wick candle. Big shadow here. Markets were plunging as the likelihood of a Trump win. Clearly, once that settled in, markets got back into its stride and digested the news. Well, the rest is history. Stock markets went on a rampage higher, and in fact, they've been trading higher pretty much ever since the election, up until, of course, COVID, when they had the global stock crash that was experienced by all markets because of the pandemic. But the stock markets have been on a tear since Trump got in. But initially, there was a big panic when they thought he was going to get in.
The stock market, 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 the stock market.
This is the euro against the US dollar. It's the most actively traded currency pair on the planet. You can see this is the Trump candle that I often refer to it as. This is election night, November the 8th, 2016. The range in here, pretty much a 400 pip range, as the markets were undecided on which way to go. It ended up with the euro going higher and the dollar going stronger as the stock markets were going into bid in the subsequent days as well. Again, this is a daily chart. So the stock markets were going higher, and so indeed was the dollar. As I will explain later on in this short video, that correlation has shifted somewhat, certainly since COVID as well. But you can see there's plenty of opportunities to make some money when markets are moving like this. So we're all excited about this upcoming election and the weeks following on from it. Now, the way I see it is that there are basically 3 potential outcomes that we can expect on November the 3rd, this upcoming election. First off, Trump wins, pulls it out of the bag and wins a second term. Secondly, Biden wins with a massive majority. Trump concedes and he disappears back into social media. Or thirdly, he may win with a smaller majority. Trump will contest it, take it to the Supreme Court or recounts and so forth. But ultimately, what happens will move the markets. Now, the most obvious market that we look at is the US stock market, which, as you know, has exploded over the Trump administration, up over, I think, 55% or something. Remember, all capital markets are linked. And this big pool of money is just basically shifting around all the different asset classes. And this move in the stock market will have consequences in other markets, in particular the Forex market. So we're now going to have a look at each of these different outcomes, how it's going to affect the stock market, and consequently how it may affect the Forex market in the short term and the medium term. Now the polls are putting Biden in the lead at the moment on a national level. However, that national level, if you remember, doesn't mean a great deal. Hillary Clinton won, I think, an extra 3 million votes than Trump back in 2017, but she lost it on the swing states because it's all to do with electoral college and things like that. And at the moment, the swing state polls are pretty level. So it's widely known that Biden is planning another round of fiscal stimulus in the wake of the COVID pandemic. What is fiscal stimulus, I hear you cry? That's basically where government starts spending more money on infrastructure, cutting of taxes for the middle class. Now this in the long run should support the stock market. Why? Well, more people have jobs, more people have money in their pockets to spend, and the economy should grow. But it's also widely expected that Biden will start to raise taxes for the rich and for those corporations, and the stock markets won't like that. Remember, the stock markets have seen huge gains under the Trump administration because of the low tax environment that Trump has put upon them. Now, if you've been watching the stock market over the Trump presidency, every time you hear the word China,
China. 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 China.
or those tweets that come out, the stock market pulls back. The stock markets don't like uncertainty. Now, if Biden were to win, this again would potentially push the stocks higher, as the belief will be that the China-US relations will improve. I don't think he won't be standing firm with China. He will have certainly a lot on his hands when it comes to China, obviously with their plans for global domination. It's just that you won't be seeing it every 5 minutes on the tweets and off-the-cuff remarks that you see on the impromptu press conferences. Think about the Euro-US relations. They've been significantly deteriorated under Trump. If Biden were to win, there could be an improvement in this, which again would be good for the stock market. And what about the pandemic? Look, opinion polls largely seem to be dissatisfied with Trump's handling of the pandemic.
It's going to disappear. One day it's like a miracle. It will disappear.
An absolute fool.
Biden indicates that he's going to be much more proactive in getting this under control. Wear a mask, he says, Mr. President. Look, take this as a sure bet. If there is a vaccine or a cure for COVID-19 in the coming weeks, months, indeed next year sometime, the stock market is going to rally significantly, no matter who wins. So you can see there's clearly two sides of the argument. Nothing is set in stone. So does a Biden win mean you buy the stock market, or do you sell it? If you just look at the opinion polls over the last recent weeks, every time you see more support going to Biden, the stock market comes back down, which is basically showing us that the tax rises that you're going to see on corporations and the rich is maybe more powerful for the investor than the other benefits of a Biden administration. So I personally think that a Biden win is going to see an initial sell-off in the stock market. Initial sell-off that will soon be met with some buying support. In fact, I'm pretty confident to say this time by Christmas, the stock markets will be at least as high as where they are now, if not significantly higher, and especially if there's any development on the COVID vaccine. Okay, so now let's look at a Trump win. He beat COVID in 3 days. I beat COVID in just 3 days. Biden's a breeze. Look, the stock market, rightly or wrongly, will love a Trump re-election. There really is little or very little justification in these inflated stock prices that we see at the moment. In a year of a global pandemic, the stocks have rallied almost 50% from those COVID lows back in March, where unemployment was up there at 14%. John Maynard Keynes is famous for saying, "The markets can remain irrational longer than you can remain solvent." Never true a word said. Don't fight the trend. These are irrational times.
I don't know what I said.
But if Trump wins a second term, you can be sure the stock market will explode, at least anyway, I would say, for the short term. Also think about it. Since Trump was elected, the S&P 500 is up almost 30%, far beating any average presidential cycle, which I think is around 12% over the 4 years. The Fed have cut interest rates to pretty much zero, and there's talk that they may even go lower. Now, this is really cheap money to borrow and to invest. So you can basically make money by borrowing cheap and investing where? Well, in the stock market. Under Trump, before COVID, unemployment had fallen to about 3.5%, pretty much full employment. COVID took it up to, I think, 15%, but it's now back down to about 8%. If he is re-elected, the same will continue. More stimulus will happen, possibly a vaccine, stocks will explode. So in summary, I would expect a Biden victory to see an initial pullback in the stocks, maybe up to 3 or 4% on the night, but that will be met with a wave of buying that should take us higher to all-time highs, certainly into next year as well, with all that cheap money that the Fed has promised us basically out to 2023. I think they've pledged to keep interest rates down at these levels. You're going to see the stock markets buoyed again. And if Trump wins, you can expect to see the stock market explode higher on the night and will continue on in the days, weeks and months ahead, again with that cheap money into 2021 helping buoy up that stock market. And of course, if we get that COVID vaccine, pop, it's going to go flying. And the third scenario, of course, is if Biden wins and Trump doesn't accept it, and Trump wants to take this to the Supreme Court or recounts and so forth. Markets don't like uncertainty, and certainly the stock markets will not be pushing higher on the night if there is thought or Trump's making waves that he's not going to accept or make an orderly handover of power. So how are these possible outcomes likely to affect the Forex market? As you know, the Forex market is the largest financial market on the planet, $7 trillion a day or whatever they say. So the Forex market is pretty much linked to everything that's going on in the world markets. Now, I always say that there are two basically states or conditions that the market can be in. It's either risk on or risk off. What do I mean by that? Well, risk on basically means you and I, fund managers, they're taking on more risk. If you're taking on more risk, it generally means you're buying the stock market. You're confident about the economy going forward, you buy the stocks. And that has implications on certain currencies as well. Typically speaking, the safe haven currencies are the yen and the Swiss. That's where money flocks to in times of uncertainty. But when risk is being put in the market, put on in the market, those currencies come under the pressure. So a rising stock market generally leads to a falling Japanese yen and a Swiss franc. Since COVID, the US dollar has actually been acting as a safe haven currency as well. As the markets are crashing back in March, the US dollar was rising as the money was flocking to the US dollar. It doesn't normally happen that way, but there's certainly been a disconnect in terms of their relationship. But I would expect to see risk on in a win for Trump would push the stock market up, and it's likely to see the commodity currencies as well. Now, the commodity currencies, they are risk on currencies. That's the Australian dollar, the New Zealand dollar, Canadian dollar, oil prices and so forth. They're likely to perform better on a Trump victory. And the safe haven currencies, the yen and the Swiss, likely to underperform. And indeed, the euro is likely to underperform as well, being a low yielding currency. So a Biden victory is likely to see an initial risk off, money coming out of the stock market as the stock markets pull back. That will have a negative effect on the commodity currencies, the Australian dollar, the Canadian dollar, the New Zealand dollar. They should trade lower. Benefits will be the Japanese yen, the Swiss franc, and even the US dollar. The US dollar are likely to trade higher initially on a Biden victory as the stock markets take an initial plunge, potentially up to 3%, maybe short-lived, as I said earlier. Into 2021, I think this euro relationship with the US may get rekindled. Then, of course, you may see some buying coming into the euro. Prolonged negative interest rates in the US, with all the stimulus going on there as well, you're likely to see the euro overperform against the US dollar. So in the medium to longer term, I'll be looking at buying dips in any euro dollar trade lower. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something. I hope you found it useful. Certainly, we've got an exciting 2 or 3 weeks ahead of us. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up. If you didn't, give me a thumbs down. Don't forget to leave a comment now. I'll get back to all of them in due course. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram and Twitter. And of course, if you follow us on Facebook, you can tune in live every Monday afternoon, 2 p.m. London time, for a live event where we stream live, basically discussing trading opportunities for the week ahead. We will be streaming live over the election as well. If you want to take part in that, come over to the trading room, see what it's all about. We'll love to welcome you in there. Okay, thanks for listening. Sorry about the wigs, had to be done. I'll see you in the next video.